chosen individuals, the moment you managed to flee, the curse began to take hold. It was a poisonous promise that was carved into each decaying street and shadowy alleyway. This was not merely animosity. Rather, it was a collective rage that raged beyond reason and beyond those who could show pity. If you wanted to survive, you had to turn an entire city against you. In the town, there was a rage that defied rationality that was raging. The fact that you were able to survive defied its most holy unwritten law and was thus an insult. Windows turned into vigilant eyes, and sidewalks shook with the instigation of homicidal purpose. You were committing a crime with every breath you breathed, and every step you took was a challenge to a darkness that refused to let go. Due to the fact that you were able to escape, the city will never forgive you. The rituals they performed were loaded with false light. You were baptized in humiliation, and their daggers were disguised as concern. They attempted to kill you in broad sight while claiming that it was healing. You were aware of it, weren't you? The muddled spells and the whispers that caused you to question the identity of your own name. They worked in circles while wearing smiles on their faces. Every single prayer that they offered was a disguised form of a curse, and every single embrace was a trap. They wanted more than just your body. They wanted your identity to disintegrate entirely into theirs. They wanted your voice to stammer, and they wanted your will to break apart. More than merely a spiritual act, what they did was also a surgical one. Their intention was to remove your soul and stitch it up in complete silence. It wasn't just jealousy, this was intentional warfare. They thought that you would be the ideal lamb since you were solitary, inquisitive, and kind. You were the altar that they brought forward. They subjected you to humiliation rituals that were so twisted that they hoped you would break them in private. These rituals included HIV/AIDS energy that was rotting from the inside, curses that were supposed to make you implode, and confusion spells that rewrote your reflection. Root labor was poured into all aspects of your life, including your food, your clothing, and your dreams. Fake love, empty hands, full of poison, was what they delivered to you after all. Your disintegration was expected to take place in a public and humiliating manner. After that, everything came to a halt. The godly spoke the words, "Access denied." Their spells came into conflict with a force that they were unable to discern. The entire universe was hurled at you, and they watched as it reacted. You did not merely survive, you really turned the tide in your favor. You were able to keep your heart intact, despite their attempts to poison it. They attempted to silence your voice, but yours became much more audible. They made an effort to make you forget who you were, but the rituals they performed only served to do so. You can be sure that your forebears stood up. Their bones refused to betray him. In addition to rescuing you from every abyss, they destroyed every illusion and set fire to every mask. As they approached you to take your crown, the divine engulfed you in a cloud of thunder. According to your family tree, not this one. Everything that they constructed was destroyed. All of the altars that they constructed in your honor were broken. Every mirror was shattered, and every spoken curse was sent back to the person who sent it with interest. In an attempt to sacrifice you, they were unsuccessful. They were not a single individual. There was never just one. It was a network that was knitted in silence and interwoven with familiarity. Old friends who suddenly stopped being interested in you. Family members who started looking at you like you were a stranger. Ex-friends who popped up with fake apologies and nefarious intents. And adversaries who pretended to just be checking in. These occurrences were not separate instances. Rather, They were coordinated activators. There was a spiritual trap within the city itself. In every hug, there is a data mine, and every handshake is a hex. You were being disassembled in a methodical manner, and they were gathering bits of you. There was more to the collective conspiracy than just malicious rumor or ill will. It was no longer the case that these individuals were persons. Rather, they were vessels, and something ancient, wounded and bitter went through them. They pretended to be worried, but in reality, they were just executioners, hiding behind the excuse of empathy. While sitting in circles, they mumbled prayers to gods that they did not comprehend, cast spells that were wrapped in Bible verses, and disguised their jealousy as a form of protection. In no way was this about assisting you in climbing. Rather, it was about dragging you back down into the abyss that they referred to as home. If your heart overflows with God's blessings, let that love shine. Click the super thank you button and give $20 or more to plant seeds of faith that will impact countless lives. Your generosity reflects His abundance. Be a vessel of His grace and watch His kingdom flourish through you. While you were under the impression that you were strolling on neutral land, the city was indicated. The rites that they performed were not merely secret. Rather, they were etched into the ground. Every lie left a scar, and every single betrayal left a mark. Both the buildings and the sidewalks are drenched with regret, and the sidewalks hold the echoes of spells. As a result of what they did to you on the land itself is deeply offended. The light that they attempted to destroy is mourned by it. Not only physically, but also spiritually, you were destined to pass away at that location. In the beginning, the town was intended to serve as your cemetery, but now the grave has turned against its creators. What was once your confinement has now become their incarceration. They are being cursed by the very land that they cursed once again. There is no way that their whispers will remain hidden, nor will their secrets remain buried. The superficial veneer of normalcy is beginning to fall away, and beneath it is rot, spiritual degeneration that can be eradicated by no amount of denial. At this moment, they take a suspicious look at one another. They can sense that the ground is turning its back on them. The atmosphere is heavy with feelings of guilt, shame, and retaliation. You managed to get away, and in doing so, you brought their ritual to a halt. It was not via your words that you revealed the spell. Rather, it was through your deliverance. Furthermore, the shadow that they had previously cast after you has now turned inward. Having summoned the darkness, they are now trapped within of it. You did not bow. That was the offense you committed. You should not have acted like a fool. You should not have joined the coven. You should not have kissed the ring of phony leaders whose only source of power was manipulation. You didn't put on their mask, not repeat their slogans, and you didn't give up your truth in exchange for approval. Even though they promised you authority under the pretext of community, you declined their offer. The rebuff of that refusal was more powerful than any speech. The fact that you simply stood in your light was sufficient. You did not need to articulate anything. The moment they gazed into you, they saw what they had lost: their spirit, their faith, and their purpose. You were a mirror for them. Because of this, they detested you. Your illumination did not enhance their shadows. Rather, it exposed them, and the dread of being exposed was their greatest concern. They constructed their authority through the use of illusions, titles, trauma connections, and silent agreements. Nevertheless, your genuineness caused everything to be disrupted. It is inexcusable that you did not compete. You simply lived, and that is the case. It was never intended for you to even make it through, let alone prosper. The purpose of your presence was to serve as a cautionary tale and a model for them to follow when they choose to resist. You, on the other hand, were the demonstration that independence is attainable. Who do they think they are? They murmured over each other. However, it was not a question. Rather, it was a challenge. Due to the fact that you did not crash when they attempted to ruin you, they cursed you with their skepticism, their resentment, and their jealousy. When they deprived you of love, you did not beg for crumbs to be given to you. You did not come back to beg for forgiveness for merely existing. You did not come for forgiveness. You left without a trace and did not return. You became the tale that they attempted to hide, and your name is the one that they can't stop talking about. Your peace was what made you dangerous. It was not your defiance that made you dangerous. How you managed to keep standing, how you managed to keep smiling, and how you managed to keep mending were all mysteries to them. Storms were sent by them, and you constructed boats. Fire was thrown by them, and you turned into rain. In spite of the fact that you were intended to require them, you have learned to rely solely on the divine. As a result of your actions, you demonstrated how frail their power actually was. You didn't stumble here by accident. You were led. If something in your spirit is stirring, don't ignore it. Tap Join to access exclusive content, prophetic insights, and a community of purpose-driven souls. This isn't just a membership, it's your moment of alignment. Step into who you were born to be. Welcome to the chosen. You became the target of their resentment because you were the reminder, the one they were unable to obliterate, the one who managed to escape. In addition, whenever they see you shining, they are compelled to confront the falsehood that they have already made peace with. You did not act defiantly. Rather, you rediscovered who you were. Why did they choose to make you their adversary? The video then continues with a little interruption regarding demonstrating whether or not you are selected, but the transcript continues. They are concealed in quietness, yet it is not silence. Rather, it is desperation. Fake accounts, mutual connections, and energy readings are the methods that they use to snoop. Under the guise of support, they dispatch messengers. They want some kind of update, even if it's merely to verify that they have failed. They require an explanation as to why their curses were unsuccessful, why you appear to be lighter, and why the clock of karma struck them instead. It wasn't just that the spell work was unsuccessful. It came back with a vengeance. It was their expectation that they would see you deteriorate, but instead, they are witnessing their own disintegration. The plan they devised to humiliate them was complex. You were supposed to be the joke of the town, the failure that people laughed at behind closed doors and muttered about in the background. They meticulously planned out your collapse, practiced the ridicule, and timed the public humiliation to perfection. On the other hand, something changed. Due to the fact that the magic was reversed, they are now the ones hiding. Their very own coven is talking about them. Their very own spirits are agitated, and their names are the ones that are being muttered with pity. Due to the fact that the joke was not successful, Karma is currently writing new punchlines with their faces up on stage. Despite this, they continue to watch, hoping for a break in the action. They believe that if they gaze at you for a certain amount of time, your glow would diminish, but in reality, it will just become more intense. Furthermore, the more intensely they obsess, the more cursed they become. You are a sermon that they are unable to resist, and your silence is louder than any clapback they could possibly provide. Not because of what you did, but because of what they were unable to do to you. They have become plagued as a result of their fixation. If you've been touched by God's goodness, don't keep it to yourself. Click super thank you, and so a gift of $20 or more to help spread his light. Your giving becomes a ripple of grace, blessing hearts and building his kingdom. Let his overflow pour through you. It is not possible for them to be over you because your survival was not merely a personal circumstance. Rather, it was a prophetic one. Undeniably, you have become the one thing that they fear the most from you. Shame permeates each and every glance that they cast in your direction. Although they are still keeping an eye on you, you are untouchable, because they were aware that your mind was powerful and that your spirit was safeguarded. They had the intention of pursuing your heart. That was the right aim all along. They provided friendships that were drenched in honey and poison, sent you partners who were actually shadows, and spoke lovely spells that were disguised as the expression of affection. It was not necessary for them to murder your body. Rather, they needed to corrupt your fragile nature. A heart that has become hardened is unable to hear divinity. They were under the impression that they could cut off your connection to the truth if they were able to shut down your heart. It was the intention to carry out an emotional assassination. However, love spells were unsuccessful, and trauma spells were broken before effect. As if they were decaying fruit exposed to sunshine, the phony friendships displayed themselves clearly. In an effort to rewrite your sense of worth by neglect and manipulation, they attempted to bind you through pity, wrap you in guilt, and bind you emotionally. If they were successful in making you feel unlovable, they believed that you would cease loving yourself. Your heart, however, did not give way. Rather, it caught fire. Through the show, through the empty hugs and looks, you were able to see through everything. You maintained your gentleness without being foolish. That was the thing that rescued you. Not only did your heart survive, but it also became your defense mechanism. Where they anticipated suffering, they discovered enlightenment. At the place where they intended to sow seeds of resentment, you developed limits. Moreover, this frightened them, because a heart that maintains its lightness in the face of a world that is attempting to break it is impenetrable. They desired for you to experience a breakdown in your emotions, but instead, they witnessed your sanctified clarity. Instead of closing your heart, you raised it to a higher level. You gained the ability to love something from a distance, to forgive without expecting anything in return, and to bless and block in the same word. It is now time for the holy scale of weight. Every single ceremony that they performed, every single treachery that they staged, and every single lie that they inhaled was weighed against your innocence. There is no forgetting in the universe. In spite of the fact that it does not favor anyone, the Most High is truly impartial. Yours is as light as a feather, in contrast to theirs, which is weighty. You chose not to take revenge. They did not receive a curse from you. Simply put, you managed to keep your soul clean, while theirs was suffocating in filth. It is for this reason that the judgment is hitting them hard and quickly. In spite of the fact that they believed they were able to crush your heart, it turned out to be the one thing that they were unable to touch. Simply because of this, you are still standing. Because of this, they are falling apart. They were already able to see the trap taking shape before you even knew it was put up. Nothing fazed your forefathers in any way. In places that were hidden from view, they stood tall, watching every spell, every setup, and every serpent move with eyes that were centuries old. It was not a case of passive spirits uttering love and light. Rather, these were warriors, guardians, and bloodline generals who refused to allow you to become a victim, even prevented bullets from hitting you that you had no idea were coming, and even modified timelines in order to save you from a pit that you were unaware you were sliding into. They were yanking you away before the blade could even make contact with your skin when you suddenly felt the impulse to flee, to ghost, or to withdraw from the situation. They had never been unfamiliar with this before. Your family tree has been steeped in the values of sacredness and safety. Not only were these ancestors connected to you, but they were also assigned to you during your lifetime. You are carrying sacred blood and divine covenants, and they were fully aware of the gravity of the situation. They observed as the town encircled you with a circle of bogus pals, masquerading as wolves in sheep's clothing throughout the process. Furthermore, as the final spell was cast, they laughed since they knew it was never going to be successful. There was divine fire that consumed every altar that was raised against you, and every jar that was buried in your name was smashed by spiritual flames. After that, the Archangels came into play. Gabriel blew the trumpet, not only as a precautionary measure, but also as a kind of judgment. Your adversaries awoke to the sound of a ringing that would not cease, while their dreams were disrupted and their calm was disturbed. In his announcement, Gabriel stated, "This one is marked." The truth that this one carries light reverberated throughout every dimension that they attempted to manipulate, revealed itself. Michael removed the sword from its sheath. He was there every time they assaulted your joy, your voice, or your breath, defending you with heavenly anger, severing cords that they attempted to bind, and closing gateways that they believed would swallow you up. The presence of his presence caused the spiritual battlefield to blaze, not with vengeance, but with balm. Raphael arrived at the scene. Raphael repaired every heartbreak that they attempted to weaponize against him. He cemented every betrayal that was intended to leave you with a scar. Because healing is not a passive process. Rather, it is a power. He countered every attempt that was made to use your tenderness against you. Raphael made certain that your wounds were transformed into weapons rather than weaknesses. Together, your spiritual team surrounded you like a stronghold, protecting you from harm. It wasn't just that they protected you, you were never left alone. The strategy was being whispered to you, your movements were being redirected, and the truth was being illuminated even while you were unable to perceive it. All of these things, that bizarre dream, that gut feeling, and that sudden impulse to detach from someone, are all forms of protection. The reality is that they were never working against you. Rather, they were working against your support. What about your support? Being divine, ancient, and inaccessible. You did not survive by luck. You were carried, covered, and crowned on your way to survival. The ultimate curse was envy, and they were the ones who brought it upon themselves. They made an effort to afflict you with a curse, hex you, and humble you. But the only spell that was successful was the one that they conjured up out of jealousy. It spread like rot beneath their skin, whispering in their minds that you did not deserve the gifts you were given, the serenity you were promised, or the freedom you were granted. They fell ill as a result. As their attention became increasingly focused on you, their own lives began to fall apart. They did not merely want you to collapse. They need it, since your ascension revealed everything that they claimed they did not feel. They became monsters as a result of their jealousy. They were peaceful, smiling, and well-dressed monsters. They were the kind of monsters that lit candles in secret and prayed for your destruction in languages that they hardly understood. Nevertheless, you didn't even have to make an effort because the backlash arrived in a short amount of time. They are being consumed from the inside out by the very spellwork that they brought with them. They were unable to continue making money. Their minds were shattered, and their relationships collapsed. It is true that they hold you responsible, but not because you caused them harm. In fact, you did not even speak about them. They considered the fact that you had just survived to be the greatest act of betrayal. It was not via your tongue that you exposed them. Rather, it was by your survival, your joy, and your silence that you did so. They hoped that you would become angry, take revenge, and bring yourself down to their level. You, on the other hand, shone brightly. You recovered, and you continued to make progress while they remained fixated. They were unable to look into the mirror without falling apart, and you became that mirror. Every ceremony they performed became a rope around their own neck, despite the fact that they cast spell after spell in the hopes that something would stick. Despite everything, they continue to cast, continue to reach, continue to observe, and continue to unravel everything. Currently, the city is its own worst enemy. They are the ones who are the bad guys, and the guilt is too loud for them to ignore. You are not the problem. The members of their own covens laugh behind closed doors, and their mentors steer clear of them. There is more to karma than just knocking. It rearranges. Their demise is not on the horizon. Rather, it has yet to arrive. Your resilience allowed you to avoid the need for vengeance. Because you were the proof, you did not require any proof. Their envy tainted everything in their immediate vicinity, yet it only served to magnify the brilliance of your light. The curse that they will never be able to break is that they desire your demise more than they desire their own healing. You were never the only target of this conflict. The blood that flows through you, the codes that you carry, and the contracts that you were born into but never signed were all relevant to this discussion. The divine nature of your bloodline, which is woven with prophecy, purpose, and protection, is what made you a target from the beginning. You have not entered a city. Rather, you have entered a battleground that is trying to pass itself off as a neighborhood. Before you ever knew your own name, a spiritual war was already raging, and your appearance was a disruption to generational agreements that had been established in secrecy. Not only were they searching for your mind, but they were also attempting to take control of your family tree. The debts of their lineage were extensive, ancestral, and unpaid. Therefore, they attempted to connect with yours by stealing your grace, inheriting your favor, and tapping into your spiritual inheritance through proximity, trickery, and even procedures involving blood. On the other hand, each and every attempt they made revealed them even more. It was never intended for you to blend in. Rather, you were supposed to stand out. Every fictitious member of your family, every spiritual assassin operating under the appearance of a friend, was drawn not to you, but to the things that are a part of your DNA. Your light was a form of cash to them, and they desired access to it. Nevertheless, the divine encircled you. Your anointing was merely strengthened by each assault, and your discernment became more acute with each plan. Your inheritance was ignited by something that was intended to destroy you. They were unaware that if they attempted to curse you, it would have the effect of putting their own line under scrutiny. At this moment, their lineage is falling apart. Their dwellings are infected with the illness that they sent. It is now their children who are experiencing the confusion that they prayed for you to have. Their ancestors are silent, but their seniors are agitated and restless. Not only were you a human, but you were also a test that heaven had sent down to test them, bearing light codes that they were not authorized to touch. They were unsuccessful. They opted to be envious rather than reverent, to rule rather than collaborate, and to be dark rather than accountable. They were doomed by that decision. In place of fighting back, you chose to remain unmoved. The victory in the conflict was not achieved by the use of violence, but rather through heritage, through endurance, and through divine identity. Since this conflict is not about ego, they will never be able to emerge victorious.